The opinions expressed by the guests on this podcast are not necessarily those of the hosts or the producers of this show.
Hey, it's Renee Graziano. Welcome back to the CrySis Queen podcast, where I am not here to make light of your trauma, but to make your trauma feel lighter. And being very educated in trauma, I have a very dear friend, childhood friend here today, who has a tremendous amount of trauma, and she's never spoken about it before. So this is the first time you're going to be hearing her story. Her name is Karen Garofalo. Let's welcome her. Karen, my friend forever. How are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be with you here.
Yes, absolutely. We're going to dive into something right off the bat, and it's deep. It's about your dad. So I want everybody to understand. Now, we know each other all our lives, but how our fathers actually knew one another and what our connection to the mafia lifestyle was, because it no longer is for us. So your dad was the 19th victim of Sammy the Bull Gravano, and I normally don't talk about anything pertaining to him, but this is about you and your trauma, and I wanted to give you a platform to share that story.
Thank you.
You're welcome, because you've never shared it.
No.
And I find it remarkable that you were able to keep your mouth closed for all these years.
Well, I don't know about you, but trauma gets buried.
It gets buried. Oh, in the backyard with a couple bodies.
It gets buried,
joking.
and it gets stored in our system.
Yes.
So then it starts to manifest itself in all the different kinds of health issues or mental issues.
Yes.
But it's definitely stored somewhere, especially if you suppress it, which I've done for many, many years. And I don't want to do that anymore. And so I'm so happy to have this opportunity to share it with you first and foremost.
Well, it's a safe space, and that's really what this podcast is about. It's about allowing a person to tell their story without judgment, to feel safe. And, if anybody out there wants to judge, fuck you. That's how I look at it. At this stage of the game, like you said, we've stored it. It's in our memory, and it's in our bones.
Yes.
And I don't think a lot of people understand that. It stays in the body, and it grows and manifests into mental health, cancer. People don't know that, but mental health is really important. So when I talk about your dad, I remember, not as clearly as you do, so I want you to bring everybody up, but I remember the phone calls and the heartache it brought so many people. So if you could share.
Yeah, I'll tell you. I was 25 at the time. It was the summer of 1990. It was August 8th. It was a Wednesday. And just a typical, I was teaching at the time, and it was a summer program. And I think it was a Wednesday, so the program ended on a Friday. I had 2 more days left to teaching. And so I probably went to bed early just because I had to be fresh for the kids in the morning. And I would say somewhere between 8:30 and 9 o'clock, my phone rang. And in my room, I was still living home with my mom. I was 25, my sister was 16, and my brother was 23. So we're all home. My mom and dad were divorced at the time, and he lived 10 minutes away in a different neighborhood. But my best friend lived on the same block, a few houses down. And I don't even know if we had cell phones. It's 1990. I don't remember if we had cell phones.
We had cell phones, yeah.
I'm not sure. I think she called me from a payphone, and she said, "Is your dad home?" It's a Wednesday night. Maybe he's out to dinner. I have no idea. But it was a very strange phone call, and she was very anxious. I said, I have no idea. I said, I'll talk to you tomorrow. And I would say less than an hour later, she pulled up. And when I saw her car pull up in front of my mom's house, she came home with my then boyfriend and my brother. And they opened the door. I came running I saw from my bedroom, I came downstairs. And my brother's 6'4".
Yeah, sure is.
And he collapsed.
Oh.
And he said, they got him. And no one had to explain to anyone in my house what that meant.
No.
They got him. And so what ensues in your house after that, my sister comes tumbling down the stairs. My mother collapses, even though they weren't married. She grew up with him. This is our ex-husband. This is a dear friend. My dad was very much part of our lives. And you start to race. what does you mean you got him? Who got him? What got him? I mean, obviously, I'm not wet behind the ears. We grew up in Brooklyn. You grew up in Staten Island. We grew up
Right.
very similar. So I knew that
We grew up in that lifestyle.
we grew up in that lifestyle. So I knew what that meant. And then you try to unravel from there. And like I suppressed it. But you walk around, and for me in Brooklyn, or you in Staten Island, you are now that marked family.
Oh.
You are, and now I'm worried about my brother because he's
course.
23. He's a big guy.
Yep.
He's going to start mouthing off. Is he next?
Absolutely.
Are my uncles next? You know, is anyone else in my family in danger? But
Yeah, that's the scary part, because it does, when there's sons, it rolls over to the children. And I don't really think that people, when they think about the mob and the excitement behind it, they don't realize what the women actually go through and what the children are plagued with. And we can sit here and talk about all the diamonds that we had and all the fur coats and the fancy cars and the picked up checks, and that's great and good, but
there's a price to pay for that.
yeah, you pay with your life.
Yeah.
Your mental health. Overall, I don't care who it is. And you know what, I look at my mom sometimes, and I don't know how she still got it together. But does she really have it together? You know, she's with my father since she's 15, like your
They were
parents.
15 and 16.
Same exact thing. How do you keep it together? So I admire your ability to keep it together, but at the same time, now that we're talking about it, now I know you're suffering on the inside.
Oh yeah, I suffered from.
And-
I was in therapy for many years, and that therapist, that's a lifeline to. And I think my one therapist quit on me. He said, "I've never heard of these stories. I can't help you."
I've had my therapist break up with
He
me.
said, "Is this a movie?" I said, "No, this is not a movie. I'm not making this up. This actually happened."
So, okay, so now your brother is there, devastated, your sister Laura.
And all cars start to arrive.
Of
People
course.
start to come to the house. Was there any? What happened? And my dad was killed coming out of. He was living with his then girlfriend at the time, and he was coming out of the house. He got a phone call to come out, and whoever he was going to meet knew that he'd be leaving the house at this particular time. And Sammy wrote a book in 1997.
Right.
So in 1997, 7 years later, I'm 32, and now I'm privy to all the details of how a mob hit goes down. And you know, when you read it and you're the average person, this is interesting to you. This was not interesting to me. I did read it because I wanted to know the facts and how this whole hit gets set up, and that there's people would never believe that so meticulously. There's a bumper car, there's a getaway car. So that guy's going to, which is exactly what happened the night they killed my father. There's a hit team, I guess, and then there's a guy who runs the lights so that if there are, oh yeah, that was Huck Carbonaro. He got pulled over. So when I arrived,
Oh, wow. I see. I don't know all the.
well, this was in the book,
Right.
and I
well,
know
I didn't read it.
I read
right.
it because it pertained to my life.
Absolutely.
And I had to read it. And so when I get to the police station, for the very next day, his body's at the morgue. They're going to obviously, keep the body in a couple of days until they release it. But I wanted his belongings. Well, because we're labeled OC, organized crime, and we're labeled mafia princesses. I go to the local precinct, which was in Bay Ridge at the time. My uncle takes me. I have to sign I'm the next of kin.
Right.
And they ask me to come into the interrogation room. My uncle says, sure. I mean, we don't know anything, but of course we'll come in there. And they proceed to throw all the crime scene photos of my dad's bloody body in front of me, and they start screaming out these names. I don't remember if Sammy was one of the names. I really don't, but I remember Huck Carbonaro. And I was like, I have no idea who that is. But he got a speeding ticket that night, a couple of blocks away by Scarpacci Funeral Home, because he was the diversion. So at that moment in 1990, this name is not familiar to me. I have no idea who that is. And it comes out later on in 1997. But you're just trying to pick up the pieces. So they don't have the belongings there. They do this whole thing with the crime scene photos. I mean, want to talk about trauma?
25 years old. Your daddy's little girl. And here they are just, that's terrible. I'm so sorry.
I had such a distaste for law enforcement after that. I thought it was so horrific. And at the crime scene, my brother is there. He was out in Bay Ridge, and someone went and got him and said, I think this is your dad.
Oh, my God.
And so he goes, and he says, he sees my father's hands with his ring and his watch, and he says, don't pull, it's him. You don't have to. And they said, no, we have to. And they pull the cover back. And so he collapses at the scene. He's the one I felt worse for. Because he's a boy. He's a man.
Right. Yeah. And I
We're-
mean, your father, like we were talking in the car on the way here, and I was like, 419 is imprinted in my brain because
Right.
of your brother always playing the
always-
birthday, and it's your father's birthday, and I just, I just knew how much your brother,
He had it the worst.
yeah, that love.
Women, we had it easier because we were kind of pushed to the side. But when you're a man and you have to deal with this, now you are Eddie Garofalo Jr. walking around with the same name. I can't imagine.
I'm sorry.
We even you. We're girls. We got to sort of be in the shadows. So then, from the 68th precinct in Bay Ridge, they said we don't have his belongings. You need to go to Central, I guess it was on Court Street.
Right.
And so again, there, thinking I'm going to be treated any better, they usually hand you the things back in a manila envelope, and
Right.
you're privy to take them home. No, this was a clear Ziploc bag with his wallet covered in blood, his ring covered. I mean, my father's gold watch and gold. And I'm just like, my uncle's just like, so, he just took it and put it down his shirt, basically, so that I
Right.
didn't have to see this bloody bag.
That's
And it's-
terrible.
But I think that, as far as the police officers felt, that we had been in this lifestyle. Like, somehow I was part of this, and I wasn't.
It's like we're responsible in
Right.
some way, shape, or form for an outcome that we have nothing to do with.
Right.
And I'm okay. And people say, well, you took the furs. I get attacked a lot. Well, you took things that your father gave you. Yeah, because my father
Right.
gave it to me.
Right.
Who you see my father as is not who my father is when he comes through the door. So being gifted
Right.
is different than we're not thinking it's blood money. Nobody's thinking that. I mean, I wasn't thinking
Right.
that. I don't think you were thinking that. But yeah,
I never saw that. As I explained, like I was telling you this earlier, that my dad was in the construction industry.
Right.
And what his arrangement was, he was not a made guy. He did not sit in a social club. He did not sit and play cards and drink coffee all day like at the
Right,
movies.
right.
He got up. He was at his office at 5:30 in the morning. His trucks rolled out, and he was in the mud on the job. And for his arrangement, which I guess the way he would describe it was a gentleman's agreement, which you got the job, a bid went out, either you knew the bid or you got the job on your own, but you paid. And
Right.
there was a tax on that job.
Absolutely.
And as a little girl, I thought this was fun to make the envelopes with him. We would count the money,
Yep.
and then we would.
Oh my God, count the money. I miss those days.
We laugh about it, but it's really sad.
Yeah.
I mean, again, maybe he should not have been doing this with his 8-year-old child. And
But if you really think about it, all he was doing was spending time with his child. He wasn't thinking one day she's going to ask what the money is for. I don't think my father, every time we cracked the piggy bank, he wasn't going to ask, Dad, where's all this money coming from? I mean, every time something fell off a truck, I was like, Daddy, you were always behind the truck. That's the schmuck in me. Even as a grown-up, I was like, wow. So I know what you're saying. So counting money with your dad, that's a pastime for me. That's one of my greatest things.
yeah, we made envelopes to whoever had to be paid, and life rolled on.
Right.
I mean, I knew we were fortunate. I shopped a lot. We went out to
Oh, yes,
dinners a
you
lot.
Beautiful life you had.
I did. And so I'm not going to say that I was naive, but there was a price to pay for all of this. And
And you paid it.
Right.
And your mother paid it, and your sister, and your brother. And I think, not to talk about Edward or be the psychiatrist, but I think Edward still pays it in his mind and his heart. He is Edward Garofalo Jr.,
yeah.
And that's hard. Absolutely. So shout out to your brother, because I truly do. He's been a friend since I'm like 16 years old.
I know.
And I admire his strength as well. So, but your trauma doesn't even stop there.
It doesn't stop on August 8th, 1990. It does not. 10 days later, so I was dating somebody very briefly. And I knew that I never had dated anybody with connections to that lifestyle. I
Right.
went to private school. I was in college. I became a teacher. I was going to go get my master's, and I was going to be a teacher the rest of my life. This was not a life that I wanted any part of. And there was a neighborhood guy, and I knew who he was, and he wanted to be tutored. And I said, you don't want to be tutored. You want to date. He said, no, I'm going to leave this life, and I'm going to date. And I thought to myself, how is he going to leave this life? He makes too much money for the people that he's with. Nobody's letting him leave this life, but let's see. let's see. So I'll tutor him. And he enrolled in St. John's, and he took 2 summer classes, and he was getting straight A's. And he was writing papers at my house, and I said, well, maybe this guy
Really?
is really, I started in the spring, and I said, well, maybe he's really serious, and maybe they're going to let him out, naive.
Right.
And I started to like him. Big mistake.
Yeah.
I started to like him, and he was really putting in the work, and he was getting straight A's. And so we're dating. It's August. He brought my brother home that night. He's the one who brought him from the scene with my girlfriend. And so he had been through the worst night of my life with me. And I'm thinking, I think he has some problems. I feel like we're being followed and stuff. And I'm like, are you sure that you're going to be able to get out of this life? I'm so naive. I'm 25.
Right.
I'm a school teacher. Are they going to let you out? Or your partner's going to let you out of this? And I had been sleeping at his house after I had been sleeping there prior to and after.
Right.
And I remember the following Wednesday, we were sleeping, and it was those air conditioners that are in the window, not central air. So you can't
Right.
hear anything.
Right,
The
absolutely.
door is closed. And I'm like, I think there's somebody downstairs. And I wake him up. I said, I think somebody's walking around downstairs in his house. And he goes down the stairs, and he puts on shoes, and he's banging down the wooden stairs. And I'm yelling, Joe, is anybody down there? And I guess when they heard me, they left.
Thank God.
They left.
Thank God.
Because they would have had to kill both of us because they're not leaving any witnesses.
Right. So somebody was in there.
Someone was in the house. And I think he found the slider open or something. So
my
he really wasn't clear about it. Was a little shaken up when he came back upstairs.
Sure.
Again, I don't think much of this because I'm reeling from my own trauma really.
Your
from
father
my-
was just murdered
just
10
murdered.
days ago.
And so I don't sleep there, I think, maybe the next 2 nights. And we have plans to go out on, he had a boat, and my brother had a boat at the time. And we were meeting at my brother's boatyard. Everybody had a boatyard. in
Yep.
different-
I remember.
The boat,
Cigarette
yeah.
boats.
Yep. So we're waiting, and we're waiting for Joe, and he's late, and he's never late. And it's like 15 minutes past the time. It's 10 o'clock in the morning. And I said, I think his stomach was bothering him last night. I'm going to get off the boat and go to find him. And I pull up 2 blocks away from where my father lived. My father was on 83rd Street. Joe lived on 85th Street. And I pull up. It's a Saturday morning, August. And I look, and the door is open. Just the screen door is closed. So I go bouncing up the stairs, and I'm, Joe. And I'm standing there in the foyer, and it's a small Brooklyn semi-attached house. There's
Right.
little brick houses, So he's attached on one side. And I'm trying to figure out what's all over the walls. And I'm like, what is this? And now I'm standing in it because I'm standing in blood, and there's blood everywhere. There's blood splattered all over the walls. There's bullet holes all over the walls. And it's not registering.
Oh, my
I
God,
remember
Karen.
looking over because they must have started shooting him as he started coming down the stairs, which had happened the 2 nights prior when I was
Right,
there.
right.
But they didn't start shooting, thank
Right.
God, that night.
So that they entered the same way.
They entered the same way, and they start shooting, and there's blood splattered everywhere, and there's blood, and there's a trail, and I'm following the trail of blood, and he is up against the back door. He probably tried to get out the back slider, and that's where I find him, and I touch him. He's dead, probably several. I'm screaming
Right.
for him to wake up, and now I come out of the house. I probably have blood on my hands because I touched him, and there are neighbors, walking their dogs, watering their lawns.
Oh, my God.
And I'm screaming bloody murder, like for somebody to help me. And I will tell you that I don't remember the rest of it. I remember just sitting on the steps. I think his neighbor that was attached to him came out. Now, why they didn't hear the gunshot wounds, or the gunshot rounds, I don't know.
But then again, people minded their business back then. And it might have been a silencer.
It might have been a silencer.
Might have been a silencer, and people did mind their business.
Right. I don't remember what happens next. I remember the same thing that happened the
Right.
week before. All the cars start pulling up. Somebody took me somewhere. I think they took me to the hospital. I think I went to an emergency
you were in
room.
shock.
I was in shock.
Wow.
I was in shock.
I'm so sorry.
So again, this is all stored up. I've never spoken about this.
No, I know. I this, for me, listening to this, it makes my whole body feel like, very tense and tight, where, it's been our experience, and we'll get into it later, where, popping a pill right now would be the greatest thing not
That would
to
be
feel.
lovely.
Right, but and like I said, we'll get into it, but I don't think people are prepared for all the consequences.
No, if you watch Goodfellas and you watch how glamorous it was.
Of course.
Right.
the glamorous side. But then Goodfellas, I think, depicts exactly what our life was. And we would say, on the way up here, that's how we grew up. We grew up in the heyday of the mob with all the mob guys and their ties and their suits, and then not realizing just where it's going to go. And I remember walking out of Pastel's one night, and there's like a shootout in the middle of everything. And I'm like, my fur coat! They're throwing me under the car. But my fur is going to get wet. And
Well, the 80s and 90s were all the family wars. They were killing people left and right.
yeah. And all the people that I stayed with. It was terrible. It was terrible. But for you to have your father pass the way he did, and then to find your boyfriend.
It was August 8th and August 18th.
And you've never spoken.
I've never spoken about this. And I'll tell you.
How did you?
A weird coincidence. Go ahead.
No. Share.
So I was still living in my home on Staten Island. It was 2021. And it's 6:45, and I put the Keurig in. This is 3 years ago.
Right.
And I have a monitor in the kitchen, and there's a guy and a girl, 30, white, blonde, both of them looked blonde, and they have a clipboard or some papers in their hand. And I think, my God, they're selling solar panels at 7:45 in the morning.
You still haven't come to reality yet, have you?
I'm like, why are people out? So, this is door-to-door sales, but they were selling solar panels and or trying to sell something at the door all the time. So I'm not answering. And then finally I go on the Ring camera and I said, yeah, can I help you? And they said, FBI. And I said, it's 2021. What is the FBI doing? This is like, this is the last thing from my mind. So I'm like, okay, give me a minute to get dressed. And I come down. And I have the Ring doorbell right next to me. And I open the door and they say, can we come in? And I said, absolutely not. Like, am I under arrest? What do you want from me? And so I have such a distaste and a distrust for them at this point in time. And I have, since worked, I prior to worked with law enforcement, but I'm like, this is at my house now. It's 7:45 in the morning. And they said, we'd like to talk to you about the murder of Joseph La Lima, which was my boyfriend. And I said,
in 21?
I said, it's been 31 years. What do you have to tell me 31 years later? You didn't question me. You didn't want to speak to me. So 31 years later, I'm not really interested in what you have to say.
So they never found who murdered him.
So I don't know. I think somebody, I said to, this is what I said to them at the door. I don't know what you want to speak about, but whoever you gave the government deal to, leave it as it is. I said, I am not here to comment on anything. Somebody took a plea deal. Somebody got the witness protection plan. For, as far as I remember reading, somewhere in the 2000s. 10 years later, someone said that they had murdered him. They got in the witness protection. They got a whole deal. And I was not opening up this can of worms.
Absolutely not.
And so I just asked them for their cards. And I was, whatever. I'm not unearthing. Really, there's nothing I need to know. It was a life that I no longer, I'm not party to.
Gone.
It's gone. It's gone. And so they're being recorded, and they keep asking to come in, and they keep asking, I said, I'm not putting myself in any danger. I don't want any part of this.
Right.
And they said, we can protect you. And it was
you can.
It was the week after Frank Cali got killed, who was
my God.
And I lived about 10 blocks away. I said, you know what?
Right.
I said, I live about 10 blocks away. You just let the last guy get killed. How are you going to protect me? I have nothing to comment on this.
Wow.
So I don't know what goes on, what kind,
Yeah, you know what? The feds haven't been around me.
Oh, okay. Well, then you're lucky.
And I mean, my father's gone just 5 years now, and I have nothing to do with the rat ex-husband. So, my family is completely removed from that lifestyle.
Right.
Yeah, of course, I could call anybody I need to call, but for the women, we've made our decision to, we do different things for life now to take care of ourselves. Because I will say this, and you can tell me if you experienced this. When your father passed, did anybody come around anymore? Because they all, like, when my father passed, not one person left an envelope for my mother. Not one.
No, nobody.
They all disappear. All these tough guys, and your father did all this good stuff for people. Nobody goes to see the family.
That's true.
Fucking trash.
I think that they feel like there's a mark on you, or I don't know. In our
case,
case,
they can stick the mark up their ass, because as far as I'm concerned, Karen, the life that we live, there's things that happen. It's jail. Somebody rats. Somebody gets murdered. But you still take care of a family, because that family is now exposed to a world of It's just a dark world.
Well,
It's not the world that I
went to
thought it
work.
was.
I had to go into
Yep.
my teaching. I didn't finish that week,
Right.
obviously.
I'm
I
sorry, I
missed-
interrupt you.
No,
So
no,
the,
no. I
the
missed.
feds is still there.
Oh, go ahead.
They're being recorded on the Ring camera. They're annoying you.
And I say that I have nothing to say. Whoever you gave the deal to, what are you trying to build a case against someone else? Because I'm not interested in building a case against whoever you gave your original deal to. Let it be.
right.
Leave me alone. But I'll take your business card. And so they wrote their names. One guy didn't have a card. The girl had the card. They gave
Right.
me the card. And so I go in the house and I have a lawyer.
Of
and
course,
I said,
we'd stay with
so
those.
I said to the lawyer, I'm going to send you the Ring doorbell recording. He said, what is this? I said, well, you can see the whole dialogue that we have, and just ask them what they want with me. They wouldn't speak to him. And so now my neighbors watch this whole thing unfold, taking their kids to school. And I come home later on that day, and my one neighbor who has 2 little girls across the street, she said, they've been sitting here for about a week. I said, a week? I mean, who am I? Like, what is it, And
Wow.
they never spoke to the lawyer, never told me what they were there for, have no
Wow.
idea.
And we don't
And why I
care.
was so interesting for a week, and
And we
then I
don't
wasn't.
care. But
right.
we don't.
No,
you
I
know
don't
what?
care.
You're like, but it's even though you see how much you said 31 years, how much time has passed, and they still like. So, as much as we want to move away from a lifestyle, you can't. We can't. We are aware. I mean, listen, I like you, very proud of my father. You know what? I'm very
Right.
proud. My father was a great man. So was your dad. It's just sad that it, resulted in the ending that it did. And again, I'm sorry to find your boyfriend murdered.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Imagine-
I can't. No, that no.
And I went to work. So my brother was working at my dad's, but he was in the field. He was operating a machine or moving
Right, I
trucks or whatever.
remember.
I went into the office and we lost contracts with people. No one would deal with us anymore. We were in the middle of a contract that these people wanted to break with us, but we were doing a job for them.
Right.
But I mean, we basically closed the business about a year later because how could we operate under that name? And I went
Right.
back to teaching, and then Edward went off on his own. But we could not. It's such a stigma that you can't. You're not taking a murder like someone that was murdered in your family.
Right.
That is never. That mark will always be with my
And that's
family.
traumatizing. Like having your business closed, that was your bread and butter, and how the family was fed. That's traumatizing too, because your whole lifestyle now changes.
I was the teacher whose dad got killed. I was in the
Right.
public school
Ooh.
system, and I walked around with that. And then I was teaching from 1991
Right.
on. I guess I went back in 91. And in 97, when Sammy wrote the book, then that was a scandal in my public school building because now it was for what I had known for many, many years was now public.
Detailed.
Yep.
And it was detailed, so they know how he was murdered.
Yes.
The stuff that you
Right.
you had to find out by reading. You know what I mean? And oh, that's just
So I've relived it over and over again in certain periods of my life when it comes to the news and there's something newsworthy, and they'll always go back and put my dad's murder pictures when they list the 19 murders or they talk about Castellano, and so I relive it. I mean, all those mob channels and stuff, I can relive it every day if I log in.
Absolutely, you're reliving it right now.
I
so
am.
I know that you are, and I'm sorry.
No,
but
I
if
wanna
you're
talk
not,
about
okay,
it.
if
Yeah.
you're not okay, tell me.
I came here to release it.
Okay, because like I said, it is a safe space, and I want you to know, like, this is not to expose anything. This is to give you because walking around with the amount of trauma that I have, different than yours, mine, my father's lifestyle definitely affected me.
Well, you and I spoke about this, and I forgive our generation of parents because they did not have any.
Agreed.
They did not have the right upbringing. There was no psychology. They didn't open a book and read about how to. They passed on their trauma to us,
Yeah.
which they had gotten from their parents.
Yeah, I know, and I try not to do it with my son. And luckily, man, my kid is so super strong. He's like, why are you depressed? I have more reason to be depressed. Get up, get out of bed. Did it, and he doesn't allow it to affect him. Unlike, you and I, your sister Laura and my sister Jennifer are much more similar, where they can close down. They still have that trauma, and they can bullshit us all they want, but they don't let it affect them physically, mentally, the way that it has us. So why don't we talk about what we're going to get into? Your mindset after he passed. I want to know where you were mentally.
Again, I don't think we left the house. Like, we went to work as a family unit, and a very small family. Like, we did not have, for my dad's wake, it was in a local place that we had always used in Brooklyn, a local funeral parlor, and it was a closed wake. It was my grandparents.
Oh, wow.
So there's a nugget of that you don't know about my dad's family. My grandmother had already been through this with her two brothers. So my father's mother had two brothers that had also been killed. She was a little girl. So she knew, right? She knew the rules. Like, this woman wrote the rule book on like what we were going to do. And she was, she was the matriarch of our family. And she said, there is nobody that's going to be at that funeral. It is going to be his brothers, his sisters, his children, and us. And that's it.
Wow.
Because she said, and she was right, she said they're going to come with their tears and their condolences, crocodile tears, and someone in that room is going to be the murderer. So my grandmother said it was, and she was right. And again, it was her own experience to do that, because she grew up on the Lower East Side. There was not a lot of opportunities for Italians.
Where my father's from.
They came here with,
They came from the dirt.
They came from the dirt. They came from southern Italy.
Yep.
And so her brothers came here, and they were like 20 and 21 when they got killed by Murder Incorporated. They worked for Albert Anastasio. And
Oh, wow.
so she had a lot of experience.
So she had her gangster.
Which was, ironically, this was really why my father was never in the mob. He was never allowed to be. My grandmother went on behalf of her. She had 3 sons, and she went to Carlo Gambino, and she said, my children will never be made because of what happened. And so they were allowed to do business because my grandfather and Gambino came over, I think, from the same town in Sicily together.
Right.
And so this is how far back my family goes with this mafia history.
I was about to say, this
it was
is
Mona,
so interesting.
It was Mona that was really the mob aficionado in my family, and she forbade any of that. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. And you see, the mob was so different back then, where they respected the word. Especially coming from a woman, they normally wouldn't.
Well, she was a tough woman.
It sounds like it. Sounds like it. But it also, and that rolled over to you, your sister, and your
I've
brother.
suppressed it. I don't know how tough I was.
No, you're tough because you're walking and you're talking and you're still functioning. So you're tough. You're tougher than a lot of people think you are, and you're tougher than you think you are.
But I never wanted to be tough about it. I wanted to still remain soft about it. I don't want to walk around with anger, and that's the first thing you see when you meet me. I don't want to walk around with that. I'd rather, where it comes out naturally, if I trust you, and I trust you, and we're having this conversation. But I didn't have this conversation with a lot of people. I didn't think it was anybody's business, but I never wanted to remain, I never wanted to come across as angry.
See, I got the opposite. Yeah, that I think people know mine's an act, though. You know what I mean? You remain soft. You remain beautiful and very ladylike. I was not able to because of the anger. And I think
But you had physical violence. I never had physical
But even
violence.
when it came to my dad, the physical abuse for me definitely made me very angry.
How could you not be?
Yeah.
When you have a husband putting his hands on you, how can you remain soft and...
Yeah, the girl went out the door.
Right.
There was no softness. But so your mindset after, now the wake comes for Joe. Did you attend?
So I was carried in and out of that wake. I was home and I was getting dressed, and my brother said to me, "You are absolutely not going to that. You were his girlfriend for a very short time." And it was only a couple months. He
Right.
had a very long-term girlfriend prior to. I think they were engaged and they had broke it off.
Right.
She was very much from the same family, the same life.
Okay.
Her dad was going to be in attendance. I was this outsider girl. Everyone in the neighborhood knew who I was. And I said, I am absolute. So my brother took my car keys and he said, "You're not driving there." And it was not too far. It was on Bay Parkway, 10 minutes from the house. And he drove me. And so I get outside and my knees are just knocking. Like, how am I doing this wake 10 days after my dad's wake? And so my brother basically, I don't think my feet touched the ground. He carried me in. I got up to the casket. I said my prayer. I fainted at the casket, and 2 people carried me back to the car. I fainted at the casket.
course.
It was,
I mean, how could you not?
It was too much.
Yeah, too much is you walk in the house and you can't figure out what's on the wall, and you're in a daze, and then you find him slouched against the wall. That
Right.
that never goes away. That's a vision. That's also something that is embedded inside of your memory.
Well, if the funeral parlor wasn't enough for me, I was going to the church the next day, and I was going to so let me tell you about women. My mother and my aunt took me to the church. My brother refused to. He said, I saw enough last night. You're not going to
Right.
make the church. And then we drove all the way out to Long Island to St. Charles Cemetery, and I stood at the graveside, and I put that man to rest in my head. And women took me.
That's well because we're the
Yes.
strong ones. We're the ones that do the time. They do the time behind the wall, but we do the time with the children, the family, the wakes, the fake facade these men put on that they're not hurting when their friends are murdered. Like that's all bullshit to me.
Right.
Now you know, I want to see a man cry. If his friend gets killed, I want to see you cry. I don't want to see this tough guy act because there's something else going on with them. You know what I mean? And they shut down in their own way. And I think we don't have a choice, Karen. I don't think you had a choice but to go on and keep moving because you know, we bend, we don't break.
Right.
You know, that's a big thing for me. I always say I bend, I don't break. But I did have a breaking point. I did break. Was it a point after that you felt that you needed any type of psychological help or no?
Oh, I went immediately.
Okay.
And so the first guy quit.
Broke up with you.
He couldn't do it. He could.
Right.
These were stories I was making up.
Right.
And then, no, I've always been in therapy on and
Okay.
off. When I feel like I need it, I went back. And then there were times when I was going through my own divorce, which was years later.
Right.
He was my only lifeline. I didn't leave the house. 3 days a week, I left the house just to see the psychologist that I was seeing at the time. So
Wow.
I've always had that available to me.
Okay, so after you lose your boyfriend, do you stay single for a long period of time, or do you?
Probably that's 1990, and I met my now ex-husband in 1992. We started dating, but we had known each other from high school.
Okay.
So he was a year younger than me in high school, and we were just friends in high school. In 1992, he knows that. He knows my story. The whole neighborhood knows my story.
The world knows your story.
Right. I'm the girl whose father got killed, and 10 days later, she finds her boyfriend. So he knows it. And we start dating in 92. I think we move in 93. And
So it moved fast.
very quickly.
Okay.
I came to your wedding with
Yes,
him.
yes.
What year did you get married?
I got married in 93, May of 93. I have those pictures. Actually, you know what? I burnt most of my wedding album, but I didn't burn the people that I liked.
Okay. So, so we move in 93. And I think that I expected him as a boyfriend, as a relationship, as a live-in partner to pick up the pieces from my dad and to be my protector.
Mm-hmm.
And for a very long time he was, and he accepted that role, and he was honored to have that role until he wasn't. Until, you know.
Well, you know what? Sometimes they get tired.
Right.
You know, and that's not your fault by any means because when you take on the role, you took the job. If you couldn't handle the job, you shouldn't have taken the job, you know? But I can't, he was very nice when I knew him back then. I don't have the same feelings about him today.
Neither do I.
I won't because you're my friend, you're my family. And to know that you've experienced the pain in your now divorce, and to hear that you went through this very dark time, that you were self-medicating.
Oh, no, I was prescriptions.
Prescription. Okay, but did you always take it the way you were supposed to?
I did, but I added alcohol to it. I don't think that was that wasn't
yeah.
on the menu.
That was not on the menu whatsoever. And that's self-medicating.
Right.
That's self-medicating. Doesn't have to be with the drug that the doctor gave you. It could be with the drug that, it's self-medicating. I'm a big self-medicator.
Well, I think as soon as they don't know what to do with you, and I'm like always 120 pounds, which is where I am now.
Right.
I went from 120 pounds to 88 pounds, and I was 88 pounds for 3 years.
Oh, my God.
I could not eat, I could not sleep, I could not drink, nothing. So what are they going to do? They give you medication because I was a furnace. I was literally shaking and burning off whatever.
Right.
There was no food in me. So the first thing, I guess, what did they start with? No, I think it was always Xanax. Maybe there were some other drugs.
Xanax,
sprinkled.
Valium.
Yeah, there were some other things,
Right.
but it was Xanax was what they prescribed a lot.
Because Xanax actually, if taken properly, in my opinion, is a great medication to handle these type of things. But the only thing is, what they don't tell you is that it's highly addictive and extremely hard to come off of. And the longer you're on it,
Right.
I was on that. We discussed that earlier. You could die coming off of it.
Well, I did not know that. I mean, I did wean off with the help of a doctor, but I was just taking them, and I see what happens. Like, so you start out, and there was a 4-hour window to the next one, and I think they were 50s. Maybe I cut them in half. I tried to stretch them out as long as I could, but I was picking up 120 a prescription, 120 in the bottle, and so. You are jonesing by 3 hours and 15 minutes. You have 45 minutes. I would try and I'm like, oh, this is. I had it in my head. This is a prescription. I have to follow the rules. I'm such a little teacher. I'm a rule follower.
You always were.
I am
Straight lace. I love you.
So I said, okay, I have 45 minutes, and then you're scratching yourself because you want to feel numb
Nothing.
again.
You want to feel nothing.
You want to feel nothing. So
explain what that means to you. You want to feel nothing.
So I would so what I would tell my shrink 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, was that I couldn't shut the movie off. And it was the movie of my life. It was my
Was it your dad?
It was all of it.
Okay, so it was everything.
The movie would not shut. I felt like it was like, somebody's rolling the
tape.
Roll the tape and let's play the story. And it would be jumbled. It would be Joe getting murdered. It would be my dad getting murdered. It would be my husband eventually leaving. And and when you take the Xanax, you get that restful feeling. Your body
your brain shuts.
Yeah, it's shutting your your frontal lobe.
Yep.
Now I know that.
Yep.
I mean, I didn't know it at the time.
Right.
And so that worked pretty well. And I had this one spot. I felt so hard on myself that I had actually let my marriage fall apart. It was under my dining room table on a tile floor. And that is where I dragged my pillow, and that is where I wanted it. I didn't want the bed. I didn't want the sofa. I wanted to be under the dining room table. I don't know if it felt like a dog. I don't know what the reason was, but I just felt like being...
Small space.
It was in my dining room, and I stayed there and didn't eat, didn't drink, and my girlfriend would come over, an attorney, every day with food, and I would say, take your food, take yourself, get out. I don't want to eat. I can't eat. And people came to help.
You were killing yourself.
I just wanted to be numb. So the Xanax would put you into sort of this, even though I was on a tile floor, there was no rug, I'm on a tile floor, but it put you into this restless state where I had 45 minutes or 2 hours of restfulness.
Of no thinking.
It shut the movie down.
No thinking. It was the greatest, I got to tell you, it was the greatest feeling on earth not to feel what my brain was telling me. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like when your brain is on.
I know exactly what you mean.
And you're feeling it physically through your legs and your arms. You're feeling the pain.
But then all of a sudden it's a calmness, right? And you're just relaxed.
It's like, wait, oh, okay. Oh, I need another one. Oh, I need another one.
That's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
So I did that. And then I would say 2 years in, it wasn't so restful anymore. So I decided that I really don't drink, but a nice bottle of wine every day. And so I started ordering them by the case. Oh, and then I started going to different liquor stores because I couldn't be
seeing the same one all the time.
So I had 3 in rotation, and I would buy a case. I was probably going through a case of wine easily a week with the Xanax, which really passes you out.
Which you also were not educated like I wasn't. My first OD was, I didn't know you can't mix alcohol and Xanax. I didn't know that. That was the first time I
didn't care. I
overdosed.
was wishing to die.
Oh,
I was wishing
wasn't
to be
back
going
then.
to sleep for. I said, if I never wake up, this will be great. They will
I'm
find me
so
under the dining room
sorry.
table. This will be great. And all I remember is that I must have had very clean garbage because the only garbage I had were those liquor bottles. And I would remember the garbage man. I would just rattle all the garbage, the sound of all those bottles going into the garbage truck. I was like, this doesn't. I knew something was wrong from that sound.
Right.
And so it didn't stop me. I think I did that for 2 years. Wow. I don't know how I'm still here with the amount of Xanax and the amount of.
Because your father's right on your shoulder.
Maybe.
And he doesn't want you to go anywhere because your work isn't done. And that's another reason for this podcast. I feel like my work isn't done. I still have something to offer people. And that's like having you here.
Oh, you're entertaining.
Oh, thank you. But having you here is actually exactly what I want for every guest, where you feel safe enough to share. Like you said, you've never told this story. So to be able to sit somewhere and tell it with cameras and people honestly, like, I don't know if you know, but I know what you're sharing, and I'm relating to it so much with the feeling of under a table. And there are so many people Karen, they can tell me they got their shit together, but they want to be under the fucking table. That's where they want to be.
That was my safe space.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
that time.
Mine is in the bed. I don't want to move. I don't want to move because I don't sleep. I have insomnia. So I go days, like 3 days, 4 days with not a wink of sleep.
I
So
don't know how you do that.
I don't know anymore. I don't know that. And so when you talk about the tape running, explain, like, I mean, I'm pretty sure people understand the never ending thoughts.
So it doesn't end, and I think, could I have done something in my marriage? You know,
ahead.
could I have done something differently?
No,
Thanks.
he is who he is.
Right.
He left for the reasons he did. He chose to, and we're going to talk about having children
Right.
because this is a huge thing. And after me finding out what he's done, like, I don't look at him like a man anymore. Like, I don't. And it's not, and I talk about anybody. It's not just, your ex. Any man that did what he did, I would have the same feelings too. So tell me about the marriage was great.
I thought the marriage was great. What you saw
Okay.
on the outside, I never sat in a chair. I sat in his lap all the time. I hung
Right.
on him.
Yep.
I
remember.
I was so in love with this man, and so we could not have children. I got pregnant naturally, so I had great eggs because they do the egg quality. He had
Right.
great sperm. I couldn't hold them, so
Right.
I have just a spontaneous. I don't know what it's called.
Neither do
Miscarriage
I.
or
Right,
spontaneous
miscarriage.
miscarriage
Right.
all the
Okay.
time. And we went everywhere. There's a lot more stuff available now in 2024. They didn't have the technology. We're going back a really long time.
Right.
You know, I was 32 at the time when I was going through fertility.
Right.
And so we made embryos. And I held the record in the doctor's office. He got 27 eggs out of me. He's like, you're the Easter egg bunny. Like, how do you have 27 viable eggs? And they all fertilized.
Wow.
Without any, because they could do manipulation. I didn't want any manipulation. I didn't want to play God. I thought, we'll take the sperm, we'll take the eggs, and if they make embryos, so be it. And
Right.
they thought I was crazy. No, we have to put chemicals. We have to
Nope.
no. And I said nothing. Just
Right.
if they hate each other in the petri dish, let them let it
right.
be. But so they didn't. So we had 18 viable embryos at the end
Wow.
of the day. So we froze 12, and we did multiple rounds of fertility. Again, I couldn't hold them. This is going back so many years ago where there were no Kardashians. There was a world without Kardashians.
Right.
So there was no surrogacy. Now,
Right. Well,
nobody
we didn't know. We weren't familiar with it.
Right.
neither.
Nobody
Right.
knew surrogacy
Right.
at the time. It wasn't like you
Absolutely.
could keep your body and be a
And,
celebrity.
Hey, can you carry that baby over there? You over there.
So we didn't have that. So
Right.
this was really a crazy thing to do. And we lived in New York, and we had to go to New Jersey because there was one Melissa Brisman. She was the only attorney that was writing the rules for surrogate.
Right.
So surrogacy. So we went out there, and we did all the paperwork, and we had been working with her, and you had to pick a surrogate now. So that was the last and final appointment to
Right.
go through this book. I don't even think it was on. I think it was a book, like a binder. It was a little bio, how many pregnancies she had, how many times she had, with a picture,
Wow.
where she lived.
Wow.
So how do you. So we were going back, and he said, I can't do this. We're not going to have somebody carry our baby. What if she eats, junk food? You don't eat. I've never eaten. I'm a
Right.
good eater. So he's like, and what if there's something wrong? And he had me convinced that we had played God, and like our embryos were not going to be good. We were going to have a child with, difficulties or some kind of.
All because somebody else had to carry the baby?
I mean, yeah, it was the craziest thing. Like, we got all the way to this point, and so we kept them frozen. He
Okay.
pulled the plug on me. I was
Okay.
devastated
Okay.
because I knew this was going to be like the thing that it is today,
Right,
where
right,
everybody
right.
uses a surrogate. But we didn't. So we never picked a mother. We never picked a surrogate, and we didn't do it. And I just kept the embryos, kept 12 embryos on ice in a cryobank for a really, really long time. And then I would say 2013 going into 14, still married, still thinking I'm happy. He said to me, what do we need those frozen embryos for? Why are we keeping them over our head? And I didn't think anything of it. He said, we're going to sit on a porch. We're going to look out at the ocean. We're going to, grow old together. We haven't had children. We're 40 years old at this point. What do we need them for? Why don't you go and destroy the embryos? And he asked for a long time. It wasn't that he asked once. He asked for a long time. And
What were you thinking when he asked that?
I still hadn't let even though I was 40 or going to be 41, I still had not let the dream go.
Okay.
So having the embryos was still the possibility of having, it was still
But
there.
what were you thinking that he wanted you to destroy? What was it? You
Well,
you believed him?
I believed him. No,
Okay,
I wasn't
that's
thinking
what I'm
anything.
saying. You
he
believed
he would
your
point out
husband.
our friends that had children and say, you see, they stay together because they have to. They have that. We stay together because we want to. We don't, there's not a child keeping us together.
Right.
We don't need this hanging over our head. And my sister said to me, I don't buy it. She said,
Of course, not Laura.
No, she's like, I'm telling you, there's some reason that he wants you to destroy these embryos. And I said, no, we just don't need them. And she said, it's not even the money. The money was nothing. It was like
Right.
$1,200. It was $100 a month. It was, we just pay it for the year and never
Right.
think about it again. And destroying them to me meant that the dream would really be over.
Right.
I mean, I'm not making embryos at this point in time. So, like, what am I
Right.
doing? So somewhere he convinced me. Somewhere, and I think going into 14, my sister and he were at a closing. My sister was selling her building, and I went and I was going to meet them for dinner. So he said, well, before you meet us, why don't you go do that today? So I did. And I remember being in the cryo bank, and they were in these, they look like cocktail straws. And so the guy takes them out of this big cryo bank, and I look at him like, where am I supposed to put them? And he looks at me like, well, where is he supposed to put them? So he gets a Ziploc bag, and he puts them in the Ziploc bag, and he hands them to me. Now, once they're going to be exposed to they're dying at this
Right.
point. Either you put
Right.
some kind of chemical, I guess, or you put them
Right.
back. And so I put them in my pocketbook, and I just left. Like, here I am with my pocketbook, and I go to the city to meet my sister and my then husband, and he goes, like, did you do it? And
I'm so mad. I'm so angry right now for you.
and I'm just, an idiot. I'm just oblivious. And I said, yeah. And my sister curses at me. And she says,
Right in front of him.
right in front of him, she's like, you're a fucking asshole.
Ooh.
She knew. And so that was really like, that was that, and, I thought about it. I probably wouldn't have been able to use them anyway subsequently because the divorce starts to happen the following year. But this was a preamble to get me there.
Right. Right. Well, you could have used them. They're yours.
I don't know. There's all kinds of
Laws?
Chucky Smith
But
used them
not,
on.
yeah, but not back then. There weren't laws, were there?
Well, no. When Chucky Smith took the ones that she had with Robert De Niro, she must have forged his signature, I guess, because you needed 2 signatures, I guess, to use them. I don't know.
I don't know.
I have no idea. But well, if there was a way to use them, I would have used them.
Okay. Well, you know what? I know this doesn't make you feel better, but that's a God thing.
I don't know because you know what?
I don't play with him.
I know I don't play with God, but I mean, I would have liked children in my life,
course.
regardless of who the father was.
Right. But maybe your story is for someone else. Not everybody, I would have liked to remain married and not raped and beaten. I would have loved that. But that's not my story. So what do I do? Do I sit there and fucking cry about it? And I did a lot of that.
Right.
But do I continue or do I pass it on to the next person so they know better not to be in the same position?
That's
And, and that's what
I
you're
hope
doing
to
today.
do.
Well, you're doing it right now.
Don't let anyone crush your dream. Don't
Never.
let anyone convince you to do something. I did not want to do that. I felt that day, and I've told you this, and I've said this to my close friends, that I killed 12 souls that day.
You did not. Don't say that.
I feel that I took 12 souls because I believe that life begins in inception. I think that was a soul, and that when I put them in my bag, the weight of what I was feeling that day, driving into Manhattan with these on my passenger seat in my bag, I felt a loss that day. I felt a tremendous loss that day.
Okay, so looking back at that situation, were you doing it to make him happy?
Yes.
Okay. So you were doing everything possible to make your husband happy, keep your marriage going. You were doing everything you thought was right.
Yes.
So then you shouldn't blame yourself. You made a decision in a marriage. In a marriage, there is a 50-50. And I look at it different. I'll tell you both parts. I'm just saying, looking at it, knowing you were doing the right thing by your husband and your immediate family. You were doing what you needed to. Now we know we don't fucking need to listen to anybody. You know what I mean? But back then, you can't. I don't want you to believe that you killed anybody. I don't want you to
struggle with that.
I know, but I don't want you to believe that. And you know what? Maybe those 12 are your personal angels too. You don't
think of
like
that.
sometimes people could do more from up.
I need a tissue.
Yep.
That was a good way to put it.
Yeah, but wait, shit. Sometimes people can do more from up there than they can from down here, Karen. Mm-hmm. And I know that doesn't make you feel like all that much better, but I want you to know, like, I believe that my father could do more for me up there than he could have down here with dementia.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, although you're without a child, you're not without. You have a nephew.
Oh, I'm
you
the
have
greatest
nephews.
godmother and aunt and
Yeah.
everything else. Yeah, I get all of that, but
I know it doesn't. I know.
I wanted to be a mom.
Of course you did, and
So much so, I'm going to tell you something,
Yeah.
because we're sharing today.
sure.
That in the middle of my divorce, I did fertility with by myself, without those embryos.
Okay.
I went to a doctor. I was 51 at the time, and it was my gynecologist for many, many years. And he said, "Is the divorce final?" And I said, "No, not yet." I said, "We're still in the midst, we're in the middle of this."
Right.
And at this point, I'm trying to get the Xanax under control, and I'm
Right.
going more holistic, and I'm
Right.
trying to get, so my third or fourth year into this divorce, I'm trying to get well with ashwagandha, valerian root, and magnolia root. And so I take a more holistic.
Lion's mane. We
All
can
of
name them
those,
all.
all of those, which is what I do today, and there's
Right.
no Xanax involved.
Right.
But to wean off the Xanax and to make this transition,
right.
I found that, a holistic approach and got rid of the wine.
Good for you.
So
Good
I
for
did
you.
all of that.
So you're sober today.
Yes, yes. And in the midst of all this, I go to the gynecologist and I said, my one regret is, and I tell him about the embryos. And he said, so have a baby now. I said, with who? And he said, a sperm bank. I said, you want me to have a baby with a sperm bank? He said, I have plenty of women career women do this. So people actually make this as a choice. They don't want a father
partner,
involved.
right.
They don't want a partner. They don't want decisions made with a partner. Do it. I'll send you to the fertility doctors. So like 2 days later, I'm at the fertility. They take blood and they're scratching their head and they're like, do you know how many eggs you have? Like, I'm 51 years old. How can I have eggs? But there's new technology now. So they tell me that I have
Wow.
this tremendous number of eggs. And so I'm like, all right, let's do an egg retrieval. And again, they're like, do you know how many eggs we got out of you? So we do the egg retrieval. And I buy sperm on the internet.
You're fired.
Okay? Sperm.
You're fired.
But this is what the fertility doctors do. So I said, how do I?
Wait, what do you mean you buy anybody's sperm?
No, you have to go
You
to
gotta
a sperm.
research them,
of course,
these
you
people
go,
and gotta know their
fertility,
grandparents.
Yes, the fertility place that I
Right.
went to
Right.
gives you a website. And
Oh, okay,
They
to-
say, no, you're not buying sperm from
Oh.
anybody.
I was like, did you really fucking
No.
lose it, Karen?
I haven't lost it that much. So the fertility clinic
Right.
sets you up with a sperm bank. I think it was out of Virginia.
And you research
And you
all this.
research. This is
Okay.
thank God online, and they give you if there's any family diseases. If there, they give
Right.
you a little bio.
breakdown.
Right. So I picked a nice doctor with black hair and blue eyes. So it gives you and what they do is they're coy. They don't want to give you their picture for now,
Right.
but they'll put a childhood picture. So I'm like, oh, he was a very cute little boy.
Okay.
And so I do a rounds of fertility, and I'm going to need a surrogate again this time because I'm
Right.
too old to carry it.
right.
And so the embryos have to go to blast, which means that they survive to day 4, and then they can be implanted. In this case, we'll freeze them, and then I'll find a surrogate, and
Right.
and we don't make it. The first round doesn't make it through. And so I wait a month, and they go, come on, you should do it again. You have a lot of eggs. And your egg quality was like AAA. And I'm like, should I do this again? Okay. And inadvertently, I pick him again because I can't go through the stress.
Right.
And he didn't have any viable pregnancies. It was probably my eggs. I'm not making excuses. But I should have picked somebody that already had pregnancies.
Babies.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And he hadn't. He was in medical school. He probably was selling sperm for money to pay for his
Right.
books or
He
something.
didn't know his sperm was no good.
Right. He probably didn't know.
Right.
So I did 2 rounds, and $40,000 later, the second round didn't take either. This is in the middle of my divorce. And so what happens is it doesn't take, and I don't have another. Each round is 20 or 25,000.
Right.
I have no
Burning-
money.
yeah,
No, I can't do
right.
this again. And at my deposition, I guess my ex-husband's attorney found one of my credit card statements and thought that I had used those embryos.
And stole his eggs?
He
Stole
thought that
his
I
sperm?
never got rid of the first embryos. So here I am being accused. It says, "Why did you go? 6 months ago, why did you go to?" I said, "Those were not your embryos. This was, this was
Right.
sperm, through a different,
Right.
through an agency."
And I can prove it.
Right, so I said, if you have the credit card receipts, you should be able to know that it wasn't those.
Right.
And so, that's the desperation that I went through to be a mother on my own. I was willing to
Right.
have
do anything.
Yeah, to do anything to be a mother.
Well, I think it didn't happen for God's reasoning. We maybe never will
I don't know.
know
I don't know
the
what his reasoning
answer.
is.
I don't know what
Maybe
it
I would have
is.
been a cuckoo mother. I
No,
would have been an
maybe it's-
overbearing mother.
Maybe it's your story
Right.
that will help some other woman. And sometimes you have to lead by example. And I think you're an amazing example of what strength and courage and resilience.
Oh, you mean every time I get knocked down, I get up?
Absolutely. Do you know how fucking hard it is? You're talking to somebody who's been knocked down as much as you and gets up. And I don't want to get up half the fucking time. I'd like to lay on the fucking floor.
Oh, it's comfortable there. That's what I said.
it
That's
is.
why I lingered there
But
for
you know
almost
what?
3 years.
You're a Garofalo. I'm a Graziano. We're not laying down for nobody.
Right.
So take me through that day. So after Laura cursed him out at the restaurant and called you assholes, tell me what was next.
So then the behavior started to change. So
Did you ever think he was cheating?
Well, I know I'm so dumb I didn't. But what I thought was, well, all of us, I always went to the gym. I always went to Pilates. I always went to yoga.
Right.
I really never had a weight issue ever.
Right.
And he was a fat guy. He
He turned out fat?
no, he was like a chubby guy. I was married to, he's a skinny guy now.
But
I
wait,
thought-
wasn't he was in shape when he was younger,
was never
right?
in shape.
No? He was a fat fuck?
he got heavy.
Good.
He got heavy. And then
You're going to get heavy again. I'm wishing fat cells on you, motherfucker. I am.
This is why I love you, Renee.
And I'm wishing them right now. You got them.
So all of a sudden he starts losing weight and he's at the gym all
Oh,
the
what a
time, and it's
twat.
like, I'm like, wow, this seems like that cliche, that they say the gym. I always had the sports car, so I was like, well, I already had the
Right.
sports car, but now all of a sudden he's getting into shape. And we had always done this 3-4 months in Florida where I would go in January and come back right before my birthday, and he would come on the weekends.
Right.
And we would rent a place because my sister was there with her husband at the time who was very sick.
Right.
So, and when he would come down, I would never see him. They knew him in Starbucks. They knew him wherever he walked around. Like, he was like Mr. Miami. So this is when he convinced me, like, oh, this is our life. We'll go back and forth to New York. You can have your 3 months here with your sister. And he came every weekend. So
Right.
did I ever think?
No,
what-
because he still was doing what he said. I'll be there every weekend.
and he was,
showing
but I
up
didn't
every-
know what he was doing at home during the
Right.
week. And
Double life.
I had cameras around the house,
Right.
and sometimes they would just mysteriously go out. And I would say, something happened to I don't know, maybe. And I would call the camera guy, and he would be like, they're getting shut off. Again, I'm so stupid. Like, I don't think, they're getting. I called my camera guy, and I said, are we having problems with? He said, no, I think your cameras are getting shut off. So, again, stupid me, didn't know. And I guess he started.
You were so lucky I wasn't around.
I didn't know. I
I'm
didn't know.
happy you didn't know.
Because,
You know what? I'm happy you didn't know. Because it sucks to know.
Yeah.
And that's more trauma you didn't deserve.
Oh, I found out afterwards. I mean, I had a private
but
investigator.
while it was happening,
Right.
that's another type of trauma.
Yeah, I didn't know, so I didn't live with that.
Right. Good
So
for
when
you.
he said he was leaving, then I uncovered everything that had happened.
So
prior.
now you have to. Okay, so now he says.
He just packs up. I'm standing on a ladder, taking down the Christmas tree. It's January 3rd, 2015, and I'm like watching him pack his entire. He's coming out of the bedroom, down the stairs, and into the car, and he's packing. He's not leaving a thing. And he said, I think I'm just going to go stay at my mother's for a little while. But you're taking everything to go stay at your mother's?
He just said out of nowhere, I'm just going to go stay at my mom.
He
Were you
started-
fighting?
No, he started telling me he came to Miami, and I'm watching him from the terrace, and he's at the pool, and he's having an animated hands and argument with someone, which must be the girl at the time, saying, like, you go upstairs and
Right.
you tell her that
Right.
you are leaving. So he comes in and he kicks the door open, and he's like, sit down, I got to tell you something. Now, he's a very mild,
Right.
very mild-mannered
Right.
guy. And I sit
Yeah,
down.
bitchy, meek, very
Yeah,
meek
very
and
meek.
mild bitchy.
Yeah. And so I sit
Twatty.
down.
He was twatty.
Thank you.
Good looking, but twatty.
Good
Go
looking,
ahead.
but twatty. And I sit down, and he sits down across from me, and he just starts crying. And I'm like, what happened? I thought, what happened? Like, did
Right.
he do something? And he said, I just don't want to be married anymore. And this was in December. This was
So
before.
how long after the embryos was this? A year?
A year.
Okay.
A year. Yeah. So the embryos. And then when we spoke, like in times that we've spoken, he told me that he wanted to leave pretty much for a year or two before.
Okay.
And he just.
Okay.
Men, and I don't know if you know this in your experience, don't leave to go find themselves. They're not going to an ashram. They're not going to find a psychologist. They're not going to learn about themselves.
No,
They're leaving
going to
for
find the next hole.
They're already in the other bed.
Listen, first of all, I don't know about men because I haven't dated any. They were all fucking rats, pussies, fucking a gay man I dated. Not that there's anything wrong with it. I'm just saying I haven't dated a straight, solid man for me. That's about me.
Right.
My
there
men
any-
always come with other things happening in their lives.
Right.
So, no.
Unresolved trauma that they haven't dealt with. That's the problem.
Oh yeah, mine.
Yeah,
all of them.
right.
All of mine were complete.
Right. At least you've
yeah.
been in therapy.
Oh.
You've like.
Yeah, I need a lot.
I don't want to.
I need a lot more.
I don't want to
therapy.
man bash, but it's very rare that a guy gets himself in therapy to work out childhood
No,
trauma.
he's usually leaving for somebody else, or
That's
has
exactly-
already left. So every man that I've been with has left. And it's not me. They're not leaving me.
Right.
They're leaving because they're not okay in their life.
Exactly.
And I don't think that
No, so my
Colada
ex,
Colada was okay.
Right. He
in
started
his life.
Today's episode is brought to you by OneSkin. As the winter months start to settle in, I always notice how more challenging it is to keep my skin in good condition. The cold winds, dry air, and the fluctuating temperatures can leave my skin feeling tight, dry, even irritated. I'm especially aware of how my face and hands take the hardest hit during this time of year, becoming dull, rough, despite all the moisturizer I do. That's when I turn to OneSkin, and I can honestly say it's a game changer for my skin's health. OneSkin was founded in 2016 by an extraordinary all-woman team of scientists who specialize in skin regeneration, stem cell biology, immunology, bioinformatics. They've been pioneering a new approach to skincare, one that goes beyond surface level improvements. Its flagship innovation, the OS01 peptide, is the first scientifically proven ingredient to help skin act, look, and feel like its younger self. It's not just about looking younger, it's about helping your skin function better by optimizing its biology at the cellular level. What stands out to me about OneSkin is their holistic approach to skincare. It's not just about slathering on some creams or lotions to temporarily improve the look of your skin. OneSkin is focused on nurturing your skin at its deepest level, boosting its resilience and ability to withstand the natural aging process. Their mission is to make sure your skin is not just surviving, but thriving. Since incorporating OneSkin to my skincare routine, I've seen such a noticeable difference. My skin feels softer, looks more radiant, and has stayed much more hydrated, even in the harshest winter conditions. The dryness that used to leave my skin looking flaky and tired is a thing of the past. Instead, I've noticed a healthier glow and smoother texture. And I'm no longer constantly reaching for extra moisturizers to combat tightness. It feels like my skin is not only better hydrated, but also more resilient and protected against the elements. Their commitment to science-backed skincare that works on the cellular level is why I'm such a fan. So if you're ready to give your skin the care it deserves, especially as the seasons change, OneSkin is definitely worth adding to your routine. Your skin will thank you. Whether you're on a hunt for the perfect gift or treating yourself, now is the time to try OneSkin. Because with every new purchase of $125 or more this month, you'll receive a free travel size product. And it changes each week. So there's always a surprise gift waiting for you. This holiday season, invest in your skin's long-term health because healthy aging is a gift. Get 15% off with your code CRYSIS, CRYSIS, at oneskin.co. That's 15% off oneskin.co with code CRYSIS. After your purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Invest in the health and longevity of your skin with OneSkin. Your future self will thank you.
After you go through the embryo, the dinner, what was next in the relationship that kind of was a red flag for you?
No, the relationship was going along well.
So there were no red flags as
I
far
never-
as you could see.
I did not see a red flag.
Okay, I got to get you some glasses, babe.
I think so.
That's like orange. That's fuchsia. It's not red.
It's not red. So I was in Miami. I stayed through 1 year, too long, because I was doing a renovation on my mom's house. She was moving down.
Right.
So it was the only year that I stayed way longer than the other 3 months.
Right.
So I guess he had way more time to
live his life.
To live his life and live out loud. And so we were coming on November 20th would have been my 15-year anniversary. And we were together 23 because we lived together for 8 before we got married. But it's the 15-year anniversary, and I say, I want to come home. And he said, I don't want you to come home. I'm coming down in a couple of days for Thanksgiving. And so the day of my anniversary, he sends me a picture of himself, and he looks terrible. And he said, I'm coming. So I said, what is this picture? He was at work. And he said, well, some people work or whatever. He said something like, it was just it was a hard
dig.
work. It was a dig at me. And so I said, well, I wanted to come home. He said, no, I'll be down in a few days, and you're not going to like it. What I have to tell you, you're not going to like. And I'm like, where's this coming from? It was like anger out of the blue.
Right, with an ugly picture.
With a weird picture. So I pick him up for Thanksgiving, and he's strange. We go to Whole Foods. We're picking up food to bring to my mother's, like last-minute wine and stuff. And he's just, something is off.
Right.
And he has a stiff neck, because I think he's got so much tension that he's got to break this news to me. That he's got a girlfriend at home.
That he gave himself a stiff neck.
He's sending...
I wish that too on you.
He can't move. I get him a massage to come to the house. He gets a massage. He takes a nap. He's still angry, but his neck feels a little better, I guess. And then, so Thanksgiving comes and goes. He has the massage. Now it's the following day. He's downstairs at the pool. And I'm watching from the terrace, and I step back because he's having an animated conversation, and I'm watching his arms flail. Well, it's heated.
Right.
And I'm thinking, who is he having an argument with? And so I watch him get the bag, and I get his towel, and then I come back off the terrace, and he comes in the house, and he's like, he practically kicks the door open, and he's like, sit down. So I'm like, this is really odd behavior. This is not this guy. He's not. He's not an angry bird. So I sit down, and he sits across from me, and he says, I have to tell you something, and he's angry, and then he starts crying, but like crying. And I said, what is going on? Did something happen? And he's like, tears and snot and tissues. And I'm like, what happened? I'm still so oblivious. Wow. And I'm sitting on his lap, like, please just tell me. I'm like, please, touching him, please just tell me. And he finally musters up I don't want to be married. What? My head, I always, this is when I realized somebody took a baseball bat and just hit my head clear across the room because it just didn't feel like attached to my body anymore. And I'm like, what does that mean? What? And he wouldn't discuss it with me. He just said, I don't want to be married. I'm going to go to my mother's for a little while, and maybe we'll come back together. Maybe I just need time to think. And I asked him, that was the first day I said, is there somebody else? And he said, absolutely not. There's nobody else. But I mean, I had that pit in my stomach.
The conversation. Then you play it back in your head.
Yeah, now I know. At the time, I just think there's something like this can't be, because there was no marital problems leading up to this.
Right.
Except I didn't know what was going on in New York.
Let me ask you something. There were no marital problems. Were you on Xanax?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay. So
I always had a prescription.
You're Karen.
Right. Yeah.
No. I know about the prescription. I'm not saying that. You didn't start using Xanax until after the fact.
Right. I had Xanax from my dad. Like they gave it,
Of
but I
course.
didn't. I was 25
right.
at the time, and I was.
No, I'm not talking about that. So you were
Xanax?
just Karen, being the great wife, Okay.
And then, so he leaves. I think he leaves the next day.
Okay.
And I said, well, I'm coming home now. And he said, no, 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 stay. Well, I guess what he's doing at home is getting everything organized. He's moving money, he's moving paperwork. And I only know this because I came home and I hit the history on my computer to see that he was, on the Chase app and, he, just moving things around. And so I realized that when I come home, this is way more than
Then
I
I'm
thought.
going to my mother's.
Yes, this is way
Right.
more. And so he packs the car one morning, right? He stayed through Christmas. He stayed through New Year's. That New Year's, I think I drank every bottle of wine in my little wine cooler. I think that I started drinking when he was still in the house because I wanted to numb myself, because
Right.
I was hanging on his ankle, begging him. We've been together 23 years. What are you doing? Like, we've weathered every storm.
Right.
What are you doing? And I said to him, you had me destroy the embryos. You said that we were this. You said we're going to sit on a porch.
We're going to have this business. We're going
Right,
to have a house
right.
in the Hamptons. We're going
Right.
to have the house in Florida. We're going to...
100%. I was reiterating all the
Right.
things that he had told me leading up to this. And he packed anyway. I'm taking ornaments off a Christmas tree, and he's packing his car. And so, it's very hard to trust people now. You know that, obviously. I mean, like, after all the other stuff that I've been through, now I'm having trust issues
Girl.
with someone who I gave my life to.
Two. Yeah.
Yeah,
So he leaves.
he leaves. And he does go to the mother's.
And he does go to the mother's. Okay, so...
And now I confront him about the girl.
What prompts you to get this?
So I got a private
But
investigator.
what prompted you to get the private investigator? The fact that he left the way he did?
Yeah, because I said
Okay,
nobody.
Now you want to know.
Right.
Okay.
Nobody leaves, unless he's telling me I'm checking myself into this, the Betty Ford or someplace where I'm going to get help and
Right.
work on myself.
Hello.
So I didn't buy the mother situation. So I find out who the girl is.
We check into Legacy Healing in Florida. Shout out to Mark Efron and Ben Fox.
Right. So, no, he doesn't do any of that. So he goes to the mother's and he comes by to talk to me, and he's bringing these little handmade pieces of paper from a notebook that I should sign, that he will give me this, he will give me that, and he's writing me deals on loose leaf. And I'm looking at him like he's crazy, and I say, how's Maria? And he says, who's Maria? And I said, do you want the last name? Do you want her birthday? Do you want her social? Do you want her address? What do you want to talk about with her? And he says, she's crazy. I got to get away from her. And now he's going to confess this to me.
Now you're his best friend. Now he's going to tell you about the fucking blowjob named Maria from down the block over there.
Oh, yeah, literally not too far from my house.
Oh, my God, really?
No,
I was joking just now.
No, but I think about it all the time. And those car wash days and those Starbucks days, I don't think
He met Maria?
I don't know. He was gone for a car wash for a couple of hours.
Oh, he was getting his car washed.
So, yeah.
His little car.
So I pulled the trigger. I mean, he was out of the house. He wasn't
Okay.
coming back. He left in January, and I spoke to a lawyer really soon, my family lawyer.
Of course.
And I just said, "What do I do? He's not paying the bills. He's not giving me money. What do I do?" And he said, "I think you need to file, because how are you going to feed yourself without
Right.
money and with
Right.
And he played all these games. He would let the light, go to the. He would let the phone get shut off. All these crazy games.
But why?
Because he would come with this
wanted
little.
to fucking leave. 'Cause
I
you
know.
wouldn't sign the loose leaf?
I went and signed the loose leaf with these crazy deals on it.
the fuck
So then he
outta
would just
here.
like car payments go, everything to torture the person who's remaining in the house. And I did.
So he's a narcissist on top of it.
I learned that word. Yes.
Yeah, I got a few other words too to teach you. So now he's withholding financial.
Yeah. In an effort to have me sign these.
So he's extorting you on top of it, this motherfucker. Go ahead, keep going, because this isn't his lucky day.
Yep. So I guess he gets rid of Maria pretty soon after, and it just becomes.
Oh, okay.
He doesn't want a serious. He just wanted somebody.
So
to
he
give
had
him,
an affair with Maria for how long?
Well, so it was probably going on for a long time prior. But once she had him to himself and she got him
Then he
out.
realized that she was nuts and
Right.
she wanted to get married. He didn't want to get married.
I said, what do you think she wants? She wants a house. She wants a baby.
She wants what
I
you
have. Right.
Exactly. Okay.
And so there was a string of Marias, lots of them. And he did that for quite some time. And he's moved on with his life. And he's remarried. And he has a child.
How old is she?
Oh, she was 25 when he started. I was turning 50, which was a head trip to turn 50.
So that's his age.
Yeah, no, he's 2 years younger than me.
So she's 25 years younger than him.
Yeah, she's 25 years
Okay.
younger than him.
He got a lot of issues, honey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and just the whole.
And I am man bashing, just for the record. I am.
Well, you know what? The whole thing. If you want to leave, just be a man about leaving, and
He couldn't even be a man about staying. How do you expect him to be a man about leaving? And this goes for any man. And I'm not man bashing other men, just him. Let me be clear on that. They're not capable of doing two things. You know what I mean? Let me have the affair. They tried the affair and the wife for years. And unless you're in our lifestyle growing up, that usually doesn't last. You know what I mean? Because the girlfriend always knows a place. You're never going to be the wife. But these guys nowadays, they're trying to juggle these two relationships. They're not mentally okay to begin with that you want to have two relationships. Do you know what I mean? So, like, why would anyone want to be with a man that wants to have two relationships?
well, clearly I didn't want to be with somebody.
No,
who
you
was
didn't.
gonna
But
be-
I'm just saying in general.
But you know what? I also blame the girls. These young girls make
100%.
themselves very available for the bag and the shoe and the trip and the jewelry and the this and that.
100%.
So I blame the young girl who makes herself available for the things. And
Some of the girls just want the bag, the shoes, and the trip. They don't want the
they
relationship.
don't really want the relationship. Right?
Absolutely. Kudos to you, whoever you are. But, I mean, avoid the married man. There's single
But I
men
just
that'll
felt that
do it.
after growing up together, after knowing everything that I had been
Mm-hmm.
through, just be fair about it. And I will tell you about the, and I asked you this when we spoke first. Did you get divorced in Staten Island?
Honey, that man didn't come with anything but fucking problems, okay? So he left the same way the fuck he came. I'm the one that had the money. If it wasn't for me, he'd have nothing, had nothing, still has nothing. The only thing he had because of me was a child, and he fucking blew that too. So my divorce was bye.
No,
Sign
in
this.
Staten Island, it took 4 years.
No.
And it was a cruel joke. Okay, it was the first court. I filed in March, and I think the first court date, by the time all the paperwork was Valentine's Day of the following year. So February 14th, and then you go 5 minutes. You're in front of the judge. You're not even in front of the judge. You're on a bench.
Right.
The two lawyers are in front of the judge, and you're sitting on a bench outside with the door closed, and you don't know what's going on. I don't know if this is just Staten Island.
I don't know. I
But
didn't
it
do
took over 4.5 years to get a divorce.
And this was because you were trying to get everything lined up, though.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And so
yeah.
you need paperwork, you need
Right.
depositions, you
Right.
need financial statements and
Right.
this and that. I mean, there was something to fight over.
Absolutely.
And so it was the two dates we'd get Valentine's Day or May, the third week of May, my birthday. And this went on for 4 years. So that's what took a toll on me. That's where the Xanax comes in. It's just
Okay.
dragging out forever.
Okay.
And my lawyer, who's from Manhattan, he says this is the only borough that does this. Nothing takes this long anyplace else. It is a delay for 6 months and then come back for 6 months. And so that was not good for my mental health, just to
No.
have this drag out like
But
this.
your testimony is going to help another woman heal because, Karen, you have been through hell.
Right.
Literally. In the best shoes. Walking through fire in the best shoes. But you've been through hell. You know, from your dad. Like, and what's crazy is our lives didn't start out as hell.
No, they were so charmed.
They were charmed lives, weren't they?
charmed.
Oh my God. The best schools, holidays, vacations, all that great stuff. And then all of a sudden we made a left. We didn't make the left. The car with the family in it made the left.
It was the lifestyle.
It was, and
the-
they made
Yeah.
the left that we were in the car with them. And that's what the fuck happens. And then from there, it's just like a never ending, yours is like a never ending saga of trauma. And I mean, you're a remarkable woman.
Well, I say I'm a work in progress because I moved away from
Absolutely.
the drugs and the alcohol, and it was a really dark time in my life. And I am taking all of those supplements and
Right.
lifestyles, and well, you haven't heard the worst of it. So in this 4.5 years
God.
that this is dragging on, this trauma is getting stored in my body, and that's
Right.
what we spoke about.
Right.
And your body takes such a bad hit. And so even though I'm still finally I start going back to the yoga, and in the 4.5 years,
Right.
finally I see a light at the end of the tunnel. We made an agreement. We're going to finally sign these papers, and I finally go back to a yoga studio, Pilates, and all of that. And somewhere one of these days, in one of my poses or one of my stances, I rip the muscle in the back of my neck. And I had gone to the class in the morning, and I ended up with a headache that day, on and off. So I take the Advil. And so from this torn muscle, it starts to tear into the artery, and the artery starts to
my
bleed.
God.
And I don't know that I'm having a stroke. And I start dating because my divorce is
Right.
finalized,
So it's time to move on.
It's time to move on, and I'm getting
And-
out of the Xanax and out of the alcohol. I'm moving to the ashwagandha and the lion's mane, and I'm
Yep.
starting to. Here's where I want to empower women to say, you know what,
Absolutely.
you can start doing supplements, you can start exercising again. The dark days are over, and I go out on a second date with someone that I really like. I'm not haven't been attracted to anybody in years,
Right.
but I'm attracted to him. And even though I have this headache and this neck ache on and off, I'm going to go on the date. And we go for Mexican food. And I get a frozen margarita, and he gets a frozen margarita and a shot. I don't get a shot of tequila. And so I take it and I go, oh, this is like the worst brain freeze from this that I've ever had.
Right.
But it becomes crippling where I can't move my
Right.
neck. So he gets up to come and massage the back of my neck.
Right.
And I said, no, this is like excruciating pain.
Right.
And he says, here, let me go get you Advil. So he goes and gets 2 packs of Advil. He says, take all 4 and take them with the shot.
My type of guy.
But I did, because
Right.
I thought, well, this is pretty good advice. And it turns out it was good advice, because it probably dissipated the blood clot that was being thrown for the stroke, because the alcohol and the Advil broke it up.
Ended up. So you're on the date, you drink this shot, but you don't even know you're having a stroke.
I have no idea.
Okay, so how did you find out that you were having a stroke? And that was what the
So I
saving
take-
grace,
I
shot
take
of
the-
tequila.
I take the 4 Advil with the shot of tequila, and the headache starts to lessen a little
Okay.
bit. And we stayed out. We went someplace else. I went home.
So this happens on a date, but how do you ultimately find out that you had a stroke?
Well, I'm home stroking for a few days after this. So
So wait a second. So you go home.
I had the shot,
Okay, you had the shot. Go ahead.
and then we go someplace else to like
Okay.
a lounge, and we're having a really nice time. And then I say, okay, the headache's starting to come back, and I go home. The next day I wake up, and I'm like, I feel crooked. Like the whole world is slanted. So, everyone's a telephone doctor. You're having vertigo. You're having this. You're having
Right.
that. But I'm doing the stroke things in the bathroom. I'm like, putting my hands up, I'm like, am I having a
So
stroke?
you're testing yourself.
Right, but I think, okay, well, let me just stay in bed today. You're just having a horrific headache. And I don't do anything on Wednesday. The next day, it's Thanksgiving. I was going to Carla's house.
Right.
And I made a salad, but I'm crooked the whole day. I take an Uber there because there's no way I can drive, because I'm starting to lose my vision in my eye. But I still don't know that that's a sign of a stroke. So if you're losing your vision, it's a sign of
Right.
a stroke. And so I take an Uber. I stay about half an hour, maybe 15 minutes the most. I don't even think I stay a half an hour. I call an Uber and I go back home and I put myself back to bed. And I'm just lying in bed on and off with this mad headache. And the next day, I wake up Friday morning. Now I can't see. Now I wake up, I look in the mirror, and there's no vision in my left eye.
Oh my God.
Now I'm panicking. But not enough to go to the emergency room. I still think this just must be I don't know at what point. I mean, I'm oblivious at this point.
You're oblivious a lot.
On a lot of things, yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. I just
But
keep
maybe
I just keep going.
But maybe that saves you.
I just keep going, like mindlessly keep going.
Right.
And, like, oh, I'll deal with this later. I'll deal with this tomorrow. I'll deal with this. That's probably what I do. I just push everything off.
Right.
And so I find a doctor's office that's open in Brooklyn. And I call up my aunt who's living in Brooklyn. I say, can you meet me in Bensonhurst? Because nobody's open. It's the Friday after
course,
Thanksgiving.
right.
Everybody's closed. And so the doctor comes out and starts they have every machine in the office, starts putting me on the machines. And she's printing out all the papers. And she keeps putting them in a folder. Now I'm crying because I know there's something wrong. And she goes, okay, you're having either a stroke or you're having a brain bleed or you had a stroke. Take this whole entire envelope I'm going to save you 2 hours in the emergency room. I pinpoint where you're bleeding from my machines. So I call a friend of mine that works at Mount Sinai in the city.
Right.
And he says, I'm not there today. He runs the emergency room. He goes, I'm
Right.
home with my kids. It's the Friday after Thanksgiving. But my friend will meet you. I pull up, my aunt drives me, and there's a girl waiting for me outside. Takes me by the hand and walks me through the emergency room into the MRI. My blood pressure is 220 or 240 over 2. I mean, I'm stroking still.
Hell yeah.
It's like 2 something over 200. And of course, they have to bring it right down.
Yep.
And I am admitted. And so, if I had gone that Tuesday night when I started having the sudden, then there's a shot for an injection to reverse it.
Okay.
But now I have the damage because I waited at home for 4 days.
So let's just, for the person that's listening, can you just list those symptoms for me in case somebody else is experiencing it, for them not to wait? I want to.
Well, the headache, obviously.
Headache.
The stiff neck.
Stiff neck.
The loss of vision.
Loss of vision.
I was still
High blood pressure.
I didn't. Who had a blood pressure cuff?
Right.
Right. A young person. I think of a blood pressure cuff, which I have on my cocktail
Nightstand,
table.
so do
Yeah,
I.
really,
Don't feel
it's
bad.
there. And so I was 110 over 70 my whole life, 120 over 70. I don't know that I'm having, but it was
Right.
the stress that my body had endured for 4.5 years. Why was the muscle in my neck so tight that from a Pilates move or a yoga move that I tore the muscle?
Right.
It was being wound so tight.
Oh my God.
That's what I really think. I think it was emotional, if you ask me,
Right.
that it affected my body so much, that it was so emotional, the 4.5 years to get divorced, that when I did that move, I was too tight, and it was just, it just ripped.
Right.
Basically.
Oh my God. Well, Karen, you're supposed to be here.
Right.
Because after everything you've been through, and especially that's extremely alarming that you're physically still able to walk and talk, and you don't have, the tick or.
But I do.
Okay,
But I mean,
well,
you don't see it, which
no.
that's a detriment to me because
Right.
you don't see it. And so when I go to a doctor's office and I say I don't feel well, they go, "You look marvelous. Like,
Right,
there's
right,
nothing
right.
wrong with you," until you put me in the CAT scan or the MRI. So there's 2 aneurysms, one at the site of the stroke.
Okay.
And there's one that developed about 6 months later. And so now I watch for that all the time, and I have to live a very quiet life from that. There's no Pilates anymore. There's no yoga. I can walk. Basically, I can walk.
Okay.
There's no weightlifting or anything like that.
Is there anything they can do to get rid of the aneurysm, or
No,
it's just.
it's not in a place where usually they can clip it. They'll put a
Right.
little metal clip so that it
Right.
never bursts on you.
Right.
They're both not in good places to do that.
Okay, so we're going to keep you happy and peaceful.
Yeah, I take high
So-
blood pressure medication, which is
Okay.
I really don't want to take it. I've tried all the supplements to get it lower, and it behooves me to take this one pill every day. I guess there's more healing to do because I feel like
Yeah.
when I'm fully healed, I will not need that pill, and I will be able to lower my blood pressure.
Well, for now, you take it because
do.
God made doctors that made the medicine, and some medicines we do need.
I know, but I had such a bad experience with the medicine that I have a thing against it now.
Right, but one pill is a completely different pill. Like, so if the doctor tells me, Renee, you need this, I don't give a shit if it's something that, treatment says I shouldn't take. If the doctor says I need it, I'm taking it. I don't have that. Oh my God, you can't take a pain pill again. Yeah, I can. If I have surgery, yes, I can. You know what I mean? If I went to a hospital and I was having, because I have severe panic attacks and anxiety, if they give me a Xanax or a Valium, I'm taking it. Because I also know it's not something I could take on the outside, but if
Okay.
it's happening right at that particular moment and it's going to affect how I feel in a day from now, yeah, I am.
Okay.
My belief system is a little bit different. Can I party? No. Can I pop pills at my own, leisure? Absolutely not. You know what I mean? I never had a drinking problem, not a day in my life. I was never a drinker. But my beliefs are my beliefs.
No, I want to be able to exercise again and have an active life. I want to be able to run and jog, and those are the
Right.
things that I
Well,
miss.
You still have, I think, a lot of soul searching. I think you have to forgive yourself because that conversation about the embryos, I think that's where it is. Like, I think, you've made peace with your dad. Joe is now over 30, we're at 35 years, right?
34, yeah.
34 years. You're good with the divorce. You're done. And I think that's always going to make you feel shitty because what he did was shitty. You didn't deserve that. But it's just your cards. You know what I mean? And we didn't get a full-handed jokers that we can make anything happen. We didn't get it. So we have to make do with what we have.
Right.
But I think like you got very emotional. And forgive me, there were times that I saw in you almost like you were gonna like really not break it. That's not the word for me, but really like I saw it in your eyes, so I kind of like lightened it up and threw a little joke here and there. It was not to. I just don't. It's not my job to make you feel worse. It's my job.
No, I wanted to share it with you. And
Yes,
you're a funny person.
Right, thank you. And I love you for sharing it. I just wanted, like I said, it's not to make light of your trauma, but to make your trauma feel lighter. So that's why every now and then there's a little joke in there.
Renee, I appreciate all your Reneeisms.
My Reneeisms. You swats.
See that?
You're fat.
That's the stuff I love.
But no, it's been amazing having you here, and that you've allowed me the space to word vomit, and it's to make you feel better. And I promise you, the more you do it,
Right.
and the more you do it with knowing you're helping somebody else, Karen, it gets better. So I want to go back before we end this amazing 2-part podcast. I want to go back to something, and it's when you talk about the stress in the divorce. Because we missed a couple things. So we know that he has now left for Maria. He had a string of Marias, but now he is remarried.
He's remarried.
And to a girl 25 years younger.
To a girl that he knew growing up, that he knew.
How did he know a girl that was 25 years younger? Because when he was 40, she was 15. Where does this motherfucker know like 12-year-olds from?
So it was his niece's best friend growing up. So we've seen this kid, from communion on.
You know her.
Yes, I know her. So we've seen this kid grow up. I don't know the situation, who's speaking over there and who's not speaking. I mean, I know that it was a big shock to everyone's system, including mine, because you have to wonder, what did you think when this kid was growing up? Is there anything that you were thinking when she was a little girl?
Karen, do you know that Hector has a baby with his sister's best friend? That's who he when I left him. That's who he married.
Yeah, because it's easy pickings. It's right there. The fruit is right there.
It's laughable. It's twisted. Think about it. They were little girls. Oh, yeah, I said it. Sorry. And I'll say it again. So it's his niece's best girlfriend.
Yes.
Little tramp.
Well, I don't know. Like I said, if anybody speaks or they don't speak, but I know that now he has the child that I never had, and that's the part that that's hard for me to deal with. And what's even harder for me to deal with is that, again, all of the stress. I believe all roads led to the stroke because I was so twisted and so tight and so repressing, what I don't want to repress anymore, and so I wanted to go back and revisit the divorce and revisit the settlement. And that's why I had asked you if you had your divorce on Staten Island.
Right.
So there's this rule that if you didn't foresee what was coming, so that it was like I didn't know it was called.
You didn't foresee shit.
I didn't know
in any scenario in your life.
I was just blind, so I didn't know that I was going to have the stroke. So we filed a motion in Staten Island to reopen the divorce based on the fact that now I'm impaired. That I don't drive.
Right.
That I don't know if I could be at work, 5 days a week.
Right.
So we tried to
So
reopen.
ultimately, he caused all of the. It's not just the heartbreak, but he caused the mental breakdown.
I think so.
Oh, I know. So from hearing you say it, you were Karen. You didn't know that this was even coming. You sat on his lap and he told you he was leaving. You weren't even prepared for any of it, and then it leads into health issues.
Right.
You were always a healthy woman.
I was
absolutely ate health. He was telling you while about the surrogate. What if she doesn't eat right? So he knows your health was A1.
Right, my health really.
And I'm not going to call the kid a tramp because it was after the fact. I just don't have respect. That age gap for me is weird.
It's a weird age
Especially
gap.
when they're around you.
Right.
And it happens, and there's such an age gap. That's weird stuff to me. Weird.
Yeah.
Uncomfortable. 25 years younger. I guess I can't date young guys after that statement anymore.
Oh, I think all the celebrities have young guys. You can try.
Oh, I'm a celebrity, am I?
You can try.
No, right now, but let's fast forward, and I want you to tell me where you are. So you mentioned that you are sober.
Oh yeah, I mean I don't take any of that stuff. It's if it doesn't come from the vitamin shop or the GNC, it's
Okay.
not in my house.
And you don't drink at all?
I'll have a glass of wine, but
Right.
you know what? It gives me a headache now since the
Right.
stroke. So if I
Okay.
have it, I wake up the next day. I can tell you exactly where my problems are in my head because that's
Okay.
what hurts. It's that specific side that hurts. And so what I wanted to go back to is that I thought that if I brought him back to court with all of the health issues,
yes.
it's called a material change of circumstance. So if
Okay.
you and I are partners and we dissolve the partnership agreement and I keep the land, right?
Right.
And 6 months later I find oil, you're going to come back to me and say, you wanted the land because you knew there was oil
Right.
underneath it.
Right.
So it's a material change of circumstance.
Okay.
So mine was, I always thought that after the end of the divorce, I would be able to go back to work. And now I have so many medical issues that I can't drive. And so there is no justice still.
Absolutely not.
I tried to bring it back to court. The judge threw it out in 6 minutes. She wouldn't even hear. After we argued and we submitted papers for like 6 months. She received all the papers, said she'd give a decision in person. It was still on Staten Island's still on a Zoom for COVID.
Oh, really?
No one else is. Manhattan is back up and running. Brooklyn is back up and running. Nassau, Suffolk. But Staten Island, we're still on a Zoom. And in 6 minutes, she dismissed the case saying that there was not enough cause. I mean, I'm telling you that like my health had suffered from all this. And I believe
Right.
that it goes back to that. Was it prior trauma? Probably, but this was the icing on the cake.
Absolutely. Like I said to you in the car, I firmly believe my ex-husband was responsible for my father's death, regardless that he had dementia. I think he was the trigger. Like, you know what I mean? The bullet don't come out of the gun unless you pull the trigger. So I definitely think that, yeah.
I went to therapy immediately during my
I,
divorce.
I
Yeah.
wish I could sue the fuck out of my ex for
Right.
all my fucking trauma.
You'll get nowhere. I mean,
Hey, I'll get nothing because he still is nothing. What am I going to get? What do rats eat? Cheese? What am I going to get? Cheese?
But they say that the trigger brings back all the stored trauma. It's it like reignites
Yeah,
it.
it does.
Yeah.
Because when one thing goes off, like I just lost a friend not even a month ago, and her death fucked with me really bad.
Brings everything to the
Like
surface.
it really bad to the point where I was just like, I gotta sleep. I gotta sleep. And that's my go-to is I gotta sleep. And yeah.
Do you sleep because it heals you? Is that what?
So I sleep because I don't want to feel, and if I don't feel, then I can get through it. Like I don't, you know what I mean? It kind of is like a healing feeling at sleep.
Are you able to will yourself to sleep if you lay down?
Oh, no.
How do you fall asleep then?
I don't. I just have to wait till no joke. I know this is crazy, but I say the Our Father, the Hail Mary, and the St. Michael prayer as many times as I have to until I fall asleep.
And how about the supplements, magnesium, the lions? None of
works.
that.
No,
Nothing.
nothing. I put on the Hallmark Channel, Murder She Wrote, Murder Diagnosis, Columbo, Kojak, something like that, which is like pastime familiar where I feel safe because I think of my mom and dad in the house, and
I relate to
I
this.
pray. I just stay praying. That's what it is. No matter how many times I say it. Last night, it happened to me last night. I was walking around my sister's house with some dog sitting, saying the Our Father as I'm going up and down the stairs in my Chinese food breaks. Because I'd go downstairs, eat the egg roll, come back upstairs. And I was saying it all over. And the St. Michael prayer for me is a big one because mine is fear.
So he's the protector? Is that the protection?
Yeah, the protector. So for me at nighttime, my fear is something bad's going to happen to me from an outside entity.
No, because I suffered from the panic attacks and a version of agoraphobia. And so you want the protection. You want to be safe.
Yep.
You want to be in bed. You want to be at home.
Yep.
Especially, you feel like that the house is your safety.
Calling my son, texting my son, hey, he's like, could you stop? Could you stop? Nothing's going to happen to you.
No, don't you think the panic attacks are a reaction to all the trauma that you've been through?
Facts. It's their trauma responses.
Right.
That's basically what it is. And it doesn't leave. And that's the sad part. You can do as much work. Listen, I did a lot of soul searching. And I was doing really, really well. But then my ex-husband decided to threaten me. And I was about 4 or 5 months clean. And as soon as it hit, thank God I was in treatment because every time it's happened outside of treatment, I relapse. And my son, true story, swear on everything holy, my son started not letting me, my son started not allowing me to get my own mail because his father, this is years ago, were writing. He'd find me and write these letters on, you need to remove the fat from your ass. You look like this. I'm going to kill you when I get out. My son had to take that mail from me because it would trigger and I would relapse. And nobody in my family, they're like, oh, she just wants to party. Nobody gets it. It's literally, now I'm spiraling.
Right, and it's your response to stress. You get the
So what do? You self-medicate, you put yourself down, you stop thinking about the bad stuff, and if I sleep a couple days, I'll come out of it, and I'll be like, oh, okay, I'm back to me. But I just lost something that I've been striving for. So it's not happening now at all, but it's throughout my, last 9 months, there's days I just want to check the fuck out.
You don't want to feel. This is exactly what we talked about.
Yeah.
You don't want to feel. You just want to shut down all the feelings, in whatever way that's possible.
My father, I recently went to Mexico and did ibogaine.
Oh, I'm so interested in this. How
I got
was
the
it?
place.
Okay.
I got the place. I've cried once over my dad since April. And that's remarkable because I was crying every single day over my father. My father's gone.
It's a
plant.
It's a guided medication.
Absolutely. No, you do it with a full, a
Right.
doctor, nurses, you're in a hospital bed, IV. It's a 12-hour process. It's not anything
Do you
little.
remember being on the trip on the
So here's what happened to me. I am one of the very few people that don't experience it.
Oh my
Yeah. However, I did do DMT.
I don't know that.
Okay, DMT is the toad. So whatever comes off of the toad, you smoke it, and it opens up like your third eye. And I'll tell you something. I was floating. I was probably high as fuck. But I was in a place of, oh, it's okay. And I heard, Renee, you got to go back. Yeah, more work to do. And just this feeling of this great big hug. Don't know if it was my father or God, but whatever it was, gave me enough courage to say, okay, I can do this. And it's a very relieving feeling. I recommend it. Not everybody. Some people believe treatment, sober. You can't do plant medicine. I believe in plant medicine, 1,000,000%.
It's supposed to enable you to let everything go on that.
You make contact with your trauma. That's the part that is very interesting. You make contact with your trauma. So I can tell you that I was face to face with my beatings, face to face with them.
Wow.
And for all these years, I've actually felt my sexual assault. Like there's times I get pains, in women parts, it'll hurt out of nowhere. Or my skin will I could smell the person that assaulted me. I could smell them. And I would ask Carla, I could scratch my skin at it. And I couldn't shake it. Once I made peace with the fact that if I didn't overdose on July 4th, 2007, I wouldn't have ended up in the hospital where I was sexually assaulted. Now, what happened to me is not my fault, but where I was my fault. So if I didn't do this, that couldn't have happened. So when I owned that part of it, the smell started to go away. And that was just recently. That was maybe a couple years ago that I made peace with that. Wow. But with the medicine, it kind of takes you right there. Mm-hmm. So I was face to face with my abuser. And it was go ahead. No, it's it just feels like I'm not afraid. I don't go to bed afraid something will trigger in the middle of the night. And it's still more work to do. But it's not like I wake up every day and I'm afraid anymore. And I know by sitting here talking to you, another woman who's experienced maybe not the physical abuse, but the mental and the emotional abuse, the loss of a father, the loss of a parent, the loss of a boyfriend, that shit, a marriage, that's trauma.
That's trauma.
That is trauma. You were with him all your life. I was with mine all my life. And although it's been so many years, has it been? Because you're still threatening me. You're still finding ways to get back. So I think part of healing is also really doing the fucking legwork, man. You gotta do the legwork. You gotta jump back into it and just face it. because some of it can't go away. 31 years later, the feds ring your doorbell.
You just can't imagine it.
No, but that's trauma.
It
It's
is.
reigniting something. So when it comes to the lifestyle, do you feel that you've made peace with your father's passing?
Oh yeah. I mean, that was like I said. I mean, that was about him. That wasn't about me. And I've never been part of. I was never friends with the daughter or any
Right.
of the
Right.
So
Right.
that was about him.
world.
Yeah, it was his world.
And Joe, you've made peace with.
Yeah, because I don't know the circumstances around
Okay.
around what happened to him,
And you don't want to
and I don't want to know.
Right.
And that's why when I answered the door, I said, "I'm sorry, I can't help you." That was really
Right.
a
And
blip.
that's the truth. You really, it's not for you. It's not your world. And I wish you tremendous success and more health and happiness, because I know you're like I know you don't know it yet, but I'm telling you, when other people hear your story, it's
I,
like it's a riveting story, and it's also like, holy shit, if she could do that, I could definitely do this. And that's I think where women like us, a blessing and a curse.
that's a good way to put it.
Yeah. But thank you very much
Thank
for
you for
coming
having
on.
me.
I love
Thank you.
you. I
I
love
love you
your
too.
family. And again, light, love, peace, and prosperity.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm your host, Renee Graziano, and thank you for visiting us at the CrySis Queen podcast. Make sure you tune in next week for another fabulous episode. And once again, thank you to my guest, Karen Garofalo.
Thank you.